Well, I want to formally invite and thank the three panelists who are very distinguished. You can't find better people in Pakistan who understand governance and the role of technology in governance. In my great friend Hasaan Khawar, who's an ex-civil servant and a consultant, but also a consultant to so many organizations within the government. He, despite his age, the people have huge respect for him, for all the profound input and insight that they've been able to get from him. I read his weekly articles, are these weekly articles on such topical issues in Tribune, and I'm better off reading these articles. So thank you, Hassan, for being here. We have Salman Ansari Saab, who's also been a federal advisor on science and technology at some stage. So he's been a federal minister, and he has deep understanding of how technology and governance come together, on how Pakistan needs to approach its education system. We are connected on Facebook. I learned so much from him. He's really been part of public sector and private sector in Pakistan for a long time, and his insight and advice is also very profound. And we have Ishrat Husain Saab, who I'm a fan of. There are people like me who wish and pray that people like Ishrat Saab rise into even more important positions that he's already been in. But we've been friends for many years. I've learned so much from him. He was governor State Bank, but he set up IBA. If you haven't been to IBA recently, you must go to IBA. Here is one man who's turned around an institution, really made it a world-class institution. I don't know why we don't tell that story in Pakistan. But he raised money from the private sector, really made IBA what it truly deserved to become. And I was just enamored seeing what he was able to achieve at IBA, Ishrat Saab coming in, turning that institution around, making it just wonderful. And we have him here, and he'll also talk about technology and governance. So I wanted to thank everyone for taking out the time from their very busy schedules to be here and talk about this important thing. I don't want to talk about it because I am biased. I'm in the trench doing it right now. All I will do is evangelize and try and convince you that our work is meaningful and important. It is changing the government. But we are really here to actually listen from the experts, people who are wiser than us, who've been around for much longer, and who can actually give us that perspective that we currently need to see if we can improve governance with technology. So over to Salman Ansari sir.
Assalamu alaikum, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure for me, especially to be sitting in front with Dr. Ishrat Husain and my colleague Hassan. And Umar Saif. I think this topic of a silver bullet and technology and governance, it's a pretty interesting and a pretty difficult topic to comprehend sometimes. We keep on talking about putting IT into the workplace. Private sector certainly understands it, but as far as the government is concerned, government is a bit more, let's say, paper-oriented, systems-oriented, and you can't transfer everything from paper to an IT platform without a bit of process re-engineering. Bringing technology, especially in the government, is a bit tricky. I have 3 examples with me. In fact, my company implemented the centralization of land records in Punjab. We got the software written by Systems Limited. We have a 60-rack data center in PITB and so on. But there, what I felt was that we could not change anything other than transfer everything from paper as it is into an automated form. But that's a big thing because normally people had to travel miles to go to a tehsil and get their fard and all that stuff, and that ubiquitous tehsildar with his cut. Here, because of setting up these centers and being able to have records which are centralized, which are not very easy to tamper when you are centralized, it's, I'm sure, much better now. But a true transformation would mean that you would have to change processes, dramatic changes there. The second one is there's a company known in Islamabad known as LMKR. They created a software which was e-government or e-office. This converts the complete file handling procedure, the noting and all the stuff, these thick files. And they started doing it, they started implementing it in the federal government. because it's under the cabinet division, it was relatively easier. And I asked those people, friends of mine, I said, what is the biggest challenge you had? Where else are you in the provincial government? They said the first thing is the challenge is now if it is going through that process, because they've just mapped all the typical paper-based processes on an e-basis, and your remarks and whatever noting you have cannot be changed, which obviously is sometimes very problematic, because those of you who are bureaucrats or have seen how green papers can be manipulated, taken out, new ones put in place, that was restricted. In the federal government, it was easy because the cabinet was behind it and they really pushed it hard. And surprise, surprise, the only province which has embraced it is anybody? KPK. I'm amazed. I work in teleeducation and telehealth, and the only place where there's traction is KPK. I don't know what it is, but that is one place where new technologies are coming in very, very rapidly. Big resistance from Punjab, bigger resistance in Sindh, Balochistan, I think you can forget about it. So that is a very solid, certified software, but just is stuck there. With these two examples, I'll give you a third one that I've worked on is the Islamabad Police, technology transformation systems and so on. And I've seen that they have actually leveraged social media to the full. They have a web page. They invite comments. They write comments. They are very, personable. They are now setting up cameras at nakas, so there's more traction of when the police is extremely polite there. You can't get away with a lot of things there. You get caught pretty easily. So anyway, that's just the preamble.
I would agree with the premise that technology might be the silver bullet to improve governance. But even if we accept that, somebody needs to fire that bullet. A bullet is as good as nothing if nobody fires it. I will give you an example. I write for Express Tribune, and a few months ago, I ran a small experiment. So what I did was, after attending a conference with high-sounding words on investment mobilization and FDI, I ran a small experiment. And I sent an email acting as a foreign investor to Board of Investment, Punjab Board of Investment and Trade, KP Board of Investment, Sindh Board of Investment, and then 4 international agencies in Ireland, Singapore, India, and there was one more, Malaysia probably. And I said I want to schedule a conference call because I have a few queries. Now, all the countries responded within 2 to 3 days, and no agency from Pakistan sent me any response back. So the problem was not in technology, the problem was in responsiveness. You go to, and I'll give you the example of Lahore Safe City. You go to the Safe City headquarters, you come across thousands of screens, high-tech capacity, supercomputers, and then you visit a police station and you say, okay, this is who is going to make use of this? So it's like a kid who is given a supercomputer. Having said that, having the supercomputer is important. Dr. Umar Saif is here, so I think it's an appropriate time to also...
This is the kid he's talking
No. So I'll give, okay. So, okay, when you look at the social media, there is an Urdu proverb, "Aawaze khalaq ko nakara khuda samjhe," and the closest translation would that be that public perception cannot be far from truth. And when you ask anyone, they would say Punjab is changing. So me being a former civil servant and a policy analyst, it interested me a lot to have a look on what actually is happening in Punjab. And I'll give you an outsider perspective with due permission from my honorable colleagues. So of course, Dr. Saab has created an organization, he's leading that, so we have to give due credit to leadership. But what he has really done, that PITB really works as a consulting arm. Because when
He's not on my payroll.
I am not. So
neither was the guy who wrote the op-ed in Express a couple of days ago.
Uh, uh, but because I was a civil servant once, and the problem with civil servants is that they know their business, but they don't know technology. And PITB came in as a consulting arm, and they like you talk to people to kind of help them develop their thinking, and then they deploy that. But the third thing, which is very important, is that in Punjab, they have developed a lot of templates, and the government departments find it really easy to hop onto them. So, and there are all sorts of examples. There could be a technology layer, which is added on to the business as usual, like the Android-based attendance monitoring solutions. There are examples that I've seen where people are rethinking their business. So when you go to agriculture, for years, for centuries, extension advice has been based on a supply-driven model. But with technology, you can actually have customized information and give demand-based advice. Then you look at problems that are emanating from technology, like terrorism and all of that. But these things with geofencing and call record tracing, so technology is used to sort out problems raised by technology. So this is the good part. But when you look at international rankings and your perspective as a citizen, I think there is still a huge gap. If I'm sitting in States or in UK or in Europe somewhere, and I have to interact with state, be it for using public transport, or getting a visa, or a passport, an ID card, or depositing my electricity bill, the first thoughts that would occur to me would be to switch on to the internet and look for it, and possibly find a way. But when you are in Pakistan, I live in Islamabad, and whenever I have to interact with state, the moments I really do not look forward to, it has never occurred to me that I can move on to the internet and kind of interact with the state through that. I'm not saying they're not examples, but that's not the predominant culture. And no wonder when you look at UN's e-government rankings, which are done for the federal government, Pakistan has a rank of about 159. There are only 3 or 4 countries which are worse than Pakistan on e-government, and these are Myanmar, Afghanistan, and a few others. So I believe that a lot of good work is being done, a lot of solutions are being developed, but to me it seems like at many places there's a parallel stream, and when I look at the government, I see a lot of apprehensions and a close-armed attitude. So to me, it's a layer which has hopped on to how the governance is being executed or done, but really government, the core of the government has still not embraced technology. So, and I think that's what needs to change. Maybe we can talk about that later, but this is what my thinking is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Umar, for inviting me. I am very thankful to the University of IT, which is one of the major new addition to the Pakistan's educational spectrum, and I wish you the best, and I'm sure that you would focus on producing the human resources for the technological advancement of Pakistan in the future, because that is what is really required. I would confine myself to what I have experienced, because people are experts in Pakistan even when they have not done anything. I desist from that. I'm very honest about it. If I haven't done anything, I shouldn't really talk about it. Or I haven't studied that subject, I should be very careful. Let me start with my experience of the State Bank of Pakistan. I flew in from the World Bank, where we worked all on computers and there was no paperwork. When I arrived at my desk, I found a whole pile of thick files which I was supposed to read and take decisions on. And that horrified me completely, because running a central bank requires quick and informed decision making. And I said, we cannot actually work like that. So we started the single largest project in Pakistan's history at that time, which was the automation of the processes, the data available at the State Bank of Pakistan. And I give you one example which shows as to how things were at that particular point of time. There was a huge file which the inspection report of National Bank of Pakistan, Pakistan's largest bank. The inspection was conducted 18 months ago, and the report was finalized and put on my table after 18 months. Now you tell me, what action can I take on any lapses or infractions which had taken place at the National Bank? The characters have gone, the facts have changed. They will come and say, no, this is old history. So that actually was the motivating point for me to change the entire system. But you must remember, technology doesn't come in isolation. It is a tool. It is to facilitate a certain objective. And that is what you should realize. If you do not have the human resources who are able to absorb, assimilate, and apply that technology, and if you do not have business processes which are aligned with the technology, then it is just simple waste of everybody's time and resources. So our strategy was to change the business processes of the State Bank, the human resource composition, and have the state-of-the-art data warehouses, web-based. At that time, the web was not at this stage where it was. Web-based solutions and applications, and ERP, which was the enterprise resource planning for the whole State Bank of Pakistan. And the fact that we were trying to link with the 38 banks at that time, we wanted the interlinkages with the banks so the data and information could be interchangeable between us and them. And we had no companies at that time in Pakistan. So we had to go for international competitive bidding because this is a World Bank loan of $30 million. And we got Oracle and we got Temenos of South Africa. In the beginning, when we carried out the survey, 95% of the people working in the State Bank were resisting this particular transformation. When I presented the strategy, they were all opposed to it. As we gave the golden handshakes, raised the salaries of the young officers, the directors, the joint directors, brought in people from outside on a merit-based competitive system. By the time I left 6 years later, the survey was done by the same company, and 95% of them were in favor of technology. They were fighting that you have given them P3, I deserve a P4, why don't I get a P4? That was the whole result of it. If you don't change the business processes, if you don't change the whole human resource composition, the returns on technology are going to be absolutely dismal. And that, I think, is a lesson we should all remember. I now come to the linkage between technology, good governance. What is good governance all about? Good governance is for accelerating economic growth in developing countries like ours and providing equitable access to the delivery of public services. That is the link between good governance and economic growth and delivery of public services. So what are the components of the good governance which are valid, although there are many components? There are three components, in my view, which can make a difference as far as both economic growth and access and equitable access to basic services concerned. These are voice and accountability. Second, second is transparency. And the third one is rule of law. And the rule of law, that discretionary powers of the lower functionaries of the government are reduced and information is available publicly and accessible to everyone. Again, I give you the example of the State Bank of Pakistan. There used to be a black market in the foreign exchange manual because there was not one single updated manual. There were cuts and pastes, and people will do the cut and paste and sell that. What we did, we purged all the circulars and the rules which were from the 1950s, brought them up to date, and put on the website. So if you are going for education, the manual says this is your allowance. You don't need an approval on a P form by the State Bank of Pakistan. You go to your bank and say, and you know what your entitlement is, and the bank knows how much you can take. So there is no information asymmetry. This is the identical information which is available to them and to you. And the whole Department of Foreign Exchange approval was abolished. So contact between the applicant and the State Bank was removed. So you go straight to your bank and do it. I was chairman of the National Commission for Government Reforms, and I think Salman was at that time in the federal government. We have financial rules which are as old as 1935 Government of India Act. So a section officer will take that rule which is going to benefit an individual whom he has made some promise or transaction and put it as a PUC. In the government, PUC is very important. It's called paper under consideration. And he will put it up along with that particular rule, and the Deputy Secretary will sign it, the Joint Secretary will sign it, and the Secretary will sign it, and that becomes the decision. The same section officer, if he wants to penalize somebody else on the same subject, will take the 1998 latest circular on the same and put her as the PUC and sign it, give it to the Deputy Secretary, and the whole process will go. So we recommended that all the financial rules, the subsidiary rules, the ESTA code, and all the other government regulations should all be digitalized, updated, purged, and put on the website. So everybody knows. So the Deputy Secretary wants to verify whether this is the rule, he will just have to click on a keyword button and the rule will come out. You know, till today, this recommendation was made in 2008. There have been 3 successive governments, and all the work has been done. It's sitting there, and it has not been accepted because the officers there lose their power. To them, hoarding of knowledge and power is a power, and therefore they don't want to dispense with it. So when your objective is that I should be the person everybody should come and request for favors, and I should patronize you, then you are in a different ballgame. No technology can actually help you. The third point I want like to make, and I'm not so familiar with Punjab, because Umar has been promising me that he will make a presentation on what he has done. He has not done it so far. But I know for Sindh, they have introduced a biometric attendance system, which is pretty good. I'm not denying something has happened. But the teachers who now come to attend the school are totally incompetent. They do not know, and Sama TV actually interviewed them and asked fundamental questions, and they couldn't answer those questions. So technology by itself is just not going to solve the problem unless you have the core of that particular problem taken care of, which is rather than selecting teachers based on sifarish and connections and money, you have teachers who are on their own merit, who know the subjects, who are committed to teaching, and whether the biometric system is there or not, they come and devote themselves to teaching with the full heart at that. So I just wanted to make this point that yes, voice and accountability can be enhanced because PTIB has developed these citizens' feedback modules. So Mr. Shehbaz Sharif says, you have had this transaction with this office. What was your experience? Were you satisfied? It is good. But if it is like all other matters filed somewhere in the department without any remedial action, either for making systemic changes or taking action against individuals, the citizen's voice is just not going to be leading to good governance. Similarly, transparency should be that the information which is available to Umar should also be available to me, so we are at the level playing field. But if he has superior information which is not available with me, then he is going to have an edge over me in a competitive bidding system. And that is still happening, that some information is made available, other information is suppressed, and which is only available when you have a transaction between the two parties. The third, on the rule of law, we have done the Punjab land record management system, which is now computerized. But you haven't given the title of that particular land to that individual in his name, so that 80% of the court cases in Pakistan are because of the disputes on land. If you give a clear title, and it is on the web page, that this plot in this mauza with these numbers belongs to Umar Saif, then I can say, oh, no, this is my father's plot, and he cannot have it. The number of disputes, which are, some of them are spurious, and which are fake disputes, which are because of the larger zamindars trying to coerce the smaller zamindars, will disappear from the scene if the title is clear. And the title clear means that you will have access to mortgages. So this is a major source of capital formation for the citizens. So you have a beautiful system of the land records, but you have to take it to the legal side of that to make it work, which is to convert this into a title conformant on the individual or on the family so that a use can be made of that particular land title. So the end point which I'm trying to make is don't consider that technology by itself is the panacea for all your problems. There are both front-end errands which you have to do, and you have a back-end errands which you have to clean up before technology becomes a tool and a facilitator for your end objective, which is good governance and economic growth. Thank you very much.
And just to quickly add on to what Ishrat Sabit said with two examples of what we faced in Punjab. One was we wanted to replace these stamp papers with electronic stamp papers, because in Pakistan you can buy backdated stamp papers, you can get fraudulent stamp papers, you can undervalue transactions, property transactions. So we wanted to replace that with an electronic system. We made the electronic system, but while we were doing it, we had to change the Stamp Act of Pakistan. Any guesses how old that Stamp Act was? There was a figure that was thrown at you, 1935. It was older than that. 1889. It was 117 years old Stamp Act that had to be modified before I could roll out my electronic stamp papers. But while that we did roll out the stamp papers, we've now done collection of close to 54 billion rupees from these electronic stamp papers, which is about 20% higher than the previous year, which means good about 10 billion rupee worth of fake stamp papers or undervalued property transactions were happening. So that, which is a very large number. And that's sort of a system that we put in, but we had to get rid of the TO office from the transaction, involve private banks, make the entire process electronic, but also go and amend the Stamp Act, the provincial treasury rules, and so on and so forth to make that happen. So that's sort of one example of not just changing an act as old as 117 years, but also changing treasury rules, getting rid of people, re-engineering the entire process, and then involving the private sector and making it electronic. And with that, we could save good about 10 billion rupees per year of just leakage in stamp duty. The other example I want to give you is the biometric attendance. We've put biometric attendance devices in 183 healthcare facilities in Punjab. And I put these devices in, and I made it such that the doctors have to mark their biometrics when they come to work and at the end of their shift. And I put these devices in, and we have these talk takes with the chief minister every 3 months. We sit down with him, we present our data to him, and we make claims on what we've been able to accomplish. I said, well, we put all these devices in. Every day, 19,000 people mark their attendance using this system. We have fixed the presence of doctors in the hospitals. Now, given the way Shahbaz Sharif is, he took that with a grain of salt, and next day was on a helicopter to a far-off remote village in Punjab to verify my claim. And what happened was that he couldn't find any doctors in that hospital. So I think I have enough brownie points with him that he forgave me the first time around. Then second time, I think 4 days later, he went to a close-by village in Kasur or someplace and still didn't find any doctors. And then came back and finally called me over for a cup of tea and told me, while I put all these biometric devices in, the attendance doesn't seem to have gone up because he couldn't find the doctors in the hospitals. So we went back to the drawing board trying to find out what went wrong, because these people are marking their attendance on these devices, and we have all the devices operational, and I fixed it, and why is it not getting better? And lo and behold, and what we found, and this is again the HR and how the processes unfold, we figured out that the doctors were gaming their duty rosters. So all of these doctors would get themselves in this duty roster, schedule their duties such that they would serve on Mondays between 9 and 2, and then disappear for the rest of the week. They'll do their 36 hours, whatever is needed, on convenient hours in the day. And if you went to the hospital in the evening or at night, God forbid, you won't find anyone there, right? So that was the problem. So we sat down and again said, how do we solve this problem? So we made a centralized duty roster generation software. It has to be one-off in the world, where for all the hospitals in Punjab, PITB generates a centralized duty roster for that hospital, sends it to the hospital, which is printed and then pasted in front of the hospital, the OR, the OPD, etc. And the doctors now mark their attendance against this duty roster that my system has generated. And finally, we cracked that puzzle. From 53% attendance of doctors, it has now risen to about 89%. And now I'm not invited to these tea parties anymore with the chief minister. No, because he's beginning to believe that. But you know, intervention after intervention, we've done a huge improvement in our vaccination regime. And again, when we rolled out our smartphones and said, you mark your attendance through the smartphones, the attendance went through the roof, but we found out that they were marking their attendance to places, villages, houses close by. The vaccinator was not going out in the villages. They were colluding with their EDOs and just going to convenient places. And then we rolled out this satellite imagery analysis system, quite advanced, where we'll automatically count houses, identify targets for vaccinators, force them to go far out. We had to redo the entire system for the geographic coverage to finally improve. And that really was a 2-year project to make some of that happen. So I fully agree with this. These are anecdotal evidences of where we could develop great technology. Punjab IT board has great developers, people who can write great code. I'm also university vice chancellor. I have about 85 faculty members at my disposal, really, really good at what they do. But it comes down to really embedding this, institutionalizing this within the government, creating a demand for this, creating awareness for this, redoing business processes, re-engineering business processes, getting rid of business processes, outliving people, getting rid of people, stepping on toes, politicizing, using courts, media. It really gets down and dirty when you want to bring about change. And technology is only an enabler to do that. My final story here is the story of the High Court. Now, if you went to the Lahore High Court and wanted to get a peshi of your choice in front of a judge of your choice, that's no longer possible. We put in a case flow management system that does automatic generation of cause lists. It does automatic calendaring. It automatically manages the dockets of the honorable judges and so on and so forth. So you can't get a peshi of your choice anymore. And it also enforces what is called the judicial plan. So as soon as you put that in, there was a huge pushback by the lawyers community as well as the judges. And the first strike that happened, there have been 3 strikes on this issue in the Lahore High Court. First strike was when a judge had given a bail to someone, had given a stay to someone, and in that stay, he has to stipulate another date of hearing within the next 7 days. That's the judicial plan, that he must do that, right? But he refused to do it, and the system would not accept that stay because it had to be scheduled within the next 7 days. And there was a strike at the court. The second strike was when someone, wanted to plead a case without having a legal lawyer's license. And the system would not verify it, would not let them hear the case. And the third one was when, one of the High Court judges became really upset at the fact that how dare I could move his dates around. It wasn't me, it was the system that we put in, which had rescheduled all the dates, automatically, and it just, his lordship didn't like that. And that was another strike also. So 3 strikes, and you must have seen that play out on TV, and now you know the guy to blame also. But we've really put that in. Now we're expanding that to benches, and now we're going to expand that to district courts. We've linked it with the police system. We've linked it with NADRA, with SECP, and with FPR for tax cases, corporate cases, and so on. So now giving bogus documents or getting your... We've put in 92,000 cases in the system, out of which 5,000 cases were lost for about 10 years. So 5,000 new cases, forgotten cases are now finally in circulation because of the system. Final story, and I'll end and then let these people speak, and you should ask questions also, is when we, I'm dealing with many people here, but also doctors who are an interesting community also. And what we wanted to make was a system where PG trainingship, where people who want to become specialists get put into hospitals, is automated in a way that people who are influential or have more money don't just get posted to Mayo hospitals and convenient places, but people are, through the system are forced to go out and serve in BHUs and RHCs and THQs and DHQs in Punjab. What you have is that you have basically no doctors in BHUs and THQs, smaller hospitals, but there's a glut of doctors in larger hospitals in bigger cities because that's where they want to go. So we wanted to make a system that's automated. Right? There was actually a computer science algorithm that was invented to solve exactly this problem. It's called the bipartite maximal matching algorithm. Right? A system that takes the merit marks of the doctors, their preferences in where they want to go and the specialization they want to go do, and the demand generated by all the hospitals. And the system would automatically do the placements on merit. So we did that's called the central induction system. You may or may not have read about it in newspapers or may not have seen protests being held against this played out on live broadcast TV. But there were a series of protests by doctors who didn't want to, to use this system, this central induction system, where I was automatically placing doctors for their PG traineeship. And now we have 5 marks, let's say, for serving in BHUs. And now finally, for the longest time, Punjab didn't have doctors in BHUs. Because of this system that gives 5 merit points for someone who served in a BHU, we have an oversubscription of doctors in BHUs in Punjab. But for the longest time, there was all of this going on. And I'm going to Civil Secretariat and going back to my office about 5 times in the day. And every time I get stopped on Mall Road because of one protest or the other. And I'm always grumbling to my driver, why am I still stuck on Mall Road? And there was that one day when I was stuck again, and I was grumbling to my driver, why are we stuck again on Mall Road? What are these idiots protesting against? And then he said, they have your name written on that play card. And that was this was actually a protest about me, about this central induction system. So while I was complaining about the protests that were happening, at that day, unfortunately, many of the citizens in this city had to suffer because of something that we had done. But these were examples of us really running into status quo and wanting to change status quo and change the system. There are many other examples. In Punjab, all the revenue record is computerized. All the police stations are computerized. The stamp papers are computerized. There are no ghost schools because we monitor them. Doctors have to come to work now. Vaccinators have to go out and vaccinate children. Agriculture subsidies are now being given out to farmers directly. You can imagine the amount of heat that we're generating in the system and the heat that is reflected back at us occasionally. But you should certainly go ahead and ask questions from these very, very, yes, absolutely.
Umar, is always very heartening to hear you speak. Good governance is like love. It is there if you can feel it. You can feel it. Okay, a couple of things. You talked about the land records. And the final part of the land record management system that we had devised was that if I had to sell you land, I would get, let's say, a password or something, and I could expose that service to anybody who would like to see it. So if Umar wants to buy your land, they could go onto the website and see an official record that this belongs to you, and you'd cut out all the crap. Unfortunately, the chief secretary at that time got transferred. He went to PIA, I think. And they didn't implement it. Anyway. Excellent.
And we are also making all the data public.
Okay.
So Hasaan is going to PIA.
Yeah.
But
So,
also to change the law, the Land Revenue Act, where you create a title. So far there is no title.
very. Anyway, I have a peeve about data in Pakistan. I've always been running battles with all these McKinsey's guys and so on. They rank us very low because I don't think they have access to what is actually happening on the ground. I don't think there's any country in the world, includes the developed countries like US and UK and underdeveloped countries like our neighbor India. Nobody has CNICs and the fingerprint that they have, mechanism that they have, which now underlines everything that's happening in Pakistan. I think this is one of the most fantastic success stories. The issues that will still remain in bringing technology to the front, even though we are a very fast expanding digital people. I think we are 200 million till last night. Overnight, okay. We have 140 million mobile phones, 49 million people on mobile phones using the internet, which is tremendous. It's a large number of people. So there's a lot of connectivity which is there. Huge number of people who are actually using, people professional things, we do it on WhatsApp. I don't wait for a letter to come. The guy takes a picture, sends it to me, and the letter then follows, 2 months later. So infrastructure exists there. Only if you can now get people to understand, whether it's in the government or any other place, that creating a technology transformation within the organization is going to be tremendous. Now, we are not alone in this. My eldest son, who's in the US, is working with one of the biggest telecom companies, T-Mobile, and he's the head of the technology transformation platform. And every week he rings me and he says, Dad, you just can't imagine. This is worse than Pakistan. So, okay. Finally, something that I've mentioned to Umar as well, while we are going willy-nilly into all this automation and so on, all of us, are extremely vulnerable to security hazards. Some of them are systemic. Some of them are created by this big bug, new bug discovered in Intel, which means billions of computers are there, which will get affected. The private sector and savvy individuals will be able to tackle this. But my biggest fear is the minute you start really relying on this process and the government, and you do not have a very solid process of hardening these systems and also making them so strong that it is not possible to bring them down or to modify systems and processes within it.
Well, our time has ended, but given that it was a panel, I'm going to take a small liberty and allow 2 questions. One from a guy and one from a girl, okay, female. The kids are gone, otherwise we would have included them also. So one question from a male member of the audience, one from a female member of the audience. Young man here, okay, let's do that.
Like, would you have, if someone is coming from civil service, he will be appointed as a section officer if he's working in chief secretary office, and other one is DMG group assistant commissioner. But a lot of their work is being done by their assistant, who is like recruited as a grade 11 or grade 12. So is there any, you're working on a system, you're going to make it a Safari-free system? Because if someone is coming from if someone is coming from grade 17 post, it is really hard to appoint it on a grade 17 post on Safari system. But the major problem is that if you have developed technology and everything, if someone is going to use the land record system in government office, he is not be a grade 18, 19, or 20 officer, or not Absolutely. Be a grade 16.
Absolutely. So I agree fully, and yes, we're making a lot of effort, but there is a political economy question here. For the longest time, these positions were filled up with political influence and so on. And if you actually talk to Chief Minister of Punjab, there are times he gets visited by the World Bank president. If you asked him top 5 accomplishments in the last 10 years, one of them would be that I recruited 73,000 teachers without Safari. You're like, really, is that one of your top 5? And he said, that's how difficult it was. Because to put off his MNAs and MPAs and not accept any Safari for recruitment teachers is different. Well, it's been such a pleasure and an honor to have all of you here. I'm so happy that you really assembled such a great set of speakers here. I want all of you to please put your hands